by the use of antineoplastons. And we already have proof that it can be cured.
She was diagnosed in March of '96. She was 11 and pretty much just started having really bad double vision is how we discovered it. Went to the eye doctor, and that's when they did the MRI and discovered it was a brainstem glioma. And they explained that hers was diffuse, where it was like the healthy tissue and the cancerous tissue were swirled together. So of course surgery wasn't an option. And with the radiation they suggested, her prognosis was probably going to be about 8 to 18 months.
The thing is, with the radiation, what it would do to you, from what I understood, was they would shoot the beam through your ears, and the beam would burn your healthy and your cancerous cells inside or outside in. So all your hair around your ears would be gone, never grow back. Your ears would become deformed and burnt. You would become deaf because you couldn't hear. It would also destroy your pituitary gland, which is the gland that helps you grow as you hit puberty.
Yeah, she was 11 at the time, and that was a real concern I had.
And it'd make you stay in an 11-year-old body. And basically, in the end, you'd become in a vegetated state where you couldn't take care of yourself, which wasn't a very good quality of life.
Because my big concern was with the oncologist originally that we were dealing with was, you know, how it was going to affect her development, and when she started to enter the teenage years, starting a period and growing and developing. And he just looked at me and he said, well, frankly, Mrs. Russell, she's not going to live that long.
What she would have to go through in those extra months, that would be horrible. I wouldn't want to go through it. Why do it?
You're handed a death sentence anyway. So what was the point of the radiation?
You know, you have to say, okay, modern medicine doesn't have an answer. Let's find our own.
Jessica Russell's brainstem glioma was confirmed by an MRI in Springfield, Missouri, and the Children's Hospital of St. Louis, Missouri.
Jessie Russell is riding on the best news she's had since March. She and her parents now believe they are on their way to a cure for what doctors had said was an incurable brain tumor. Here at the Burzynski Clinic in Houston, Texas, the Russells have found an experimental drug they could only dream of 8 months ago. That's when Jessie was still a 5th grader at a Catholic elementary school in Springfield. It's when one of her eyes started crossing in. She started seeing double. It's when Jessie went to the doctor and learned she had one of the most aggressive kinds of brain cancer. A malignant tumor doctors said would kill her within months, and that radiation would only give her a little more time.
And I would live for only 3 months and live in pain, and that's it, and not a fun life. Yeah, I would still die.
Today, the medical pictures tell a different story. You can see the improvement immediately just looking at Jessie's eyes now compared to last May.
An MRI on May 7th of 1996 revealed the size of the enhancing portion of Jessica's tumor. 1 month into starting antineoplaston treatment, her tumor disappeared. However, given the aggressive nature of this type of tumor, it quickly returned in August and remained until November, in which time Dr. Burzynski doubled her antineoplaston dosage until her tumor went away in December, only to return again in January of 1997, stayed around until April, and finally disappeared in May of 1997, 1 year after starting antineoplaston treatment. Jessica's tumor remained non-existent up until October 2001, when her brainstem glioma was considered resolved.
There were very few doctors that you would tell them you were seeing Burzynski that would be kind of encouraging and positive with you. Most of them, they would hear the name Burzynski and they wouldn't want to deal with you because they were afraid. I'm so relieved that we found Dr. Burzynski. Literally, it did save her life. And here she is now 24, and she's got a little boy who's almost 5, and then she has her second baby will be born in October. We just found out she's having a little girl.
Again, it's one thing to observe a single anecdotal childhood brainstem glioma survivor, and it's another to see the results from FDA-supervised clinical trials treating Jessica's type of cancer. Here is a table illustrating studies published in 2006 comparing the results of different childhood brainstem glioma treatments. There were 3 groups treated with radiation and chemotherapy, and 2 groups treated with Dr. Burzynski's anti-neoplastons. Out of all 3 groups treated with radiation and chemotherapy, only 1 of 107 patients, or 0.9%, were cancer-free after treatment. However, this patient did not live beyond 5 years, presumably being devastated by the amount of radiation and chemotherapy. Out of both groups treated with anti-neoplastons, 11 of the 40 patients, or 27.5%, were cancer-free after treatment. And 11 of the 40 patients, or 27.5%, lived more than 5 years. Most of these brainstem glioma survivors who were not previously subjected to toxic chemotherapy and radiation before starting anti-neoplaston treatment have gone on to enjoy full, healthy lives.
So the good news is that the cancer can be cured. The worst type of cancer can be cured, for good. The people who are surviving, they live normal life. No side effects from the treatment, no symptoms, no sign of tumors, back to life. We started some of them as children, and they have their own 3 children. There is no impairment of fertility. They just live normal life. The bad thing, however, is that we know that we can help not everybody, but some of these patients. Well, if about 30% of patients can survive over 5 years, and a number of them live over 10 years without any sign of cancer, that's a good thing. But obviously, this is just the beginning. We need to perfect this. We need to introduce the newer generation of angioplasties, which we call 2nd and the 3rd generation of angioplasties, to make the treatment more effective, to cover broad spectrum, and to be easier to administer.
They came back, they said she has this large baseball-sized tumor in her abdomen, and not only that, but it's in her kidney. It was like everywhere. It was like
and her liver and her lungs.
Her kidney and her lungs. So here we are thinking, basically, this child has literally a few months to live, is basically what they told us. At that point, they said, well, we think we can get the original tumor out. So they had this surgeon. He was able to go in. He got the whole tumor. She did lose her left kidney and her left adrenal gland. And it was 4 drugs, and it was like 8 pages of side effects and very little hope that it would even work. So because the drugs were mitotane, doxorubicin, etoposide, and cisplatin. And they told us, admittedly, this is the most toxic regimen that we have. We have a 6-month-old with 1 kidney, and the side effects were like kidney failure, hairy fat, leukemia, I mean other kinds of cancers coming from this. And I was just like, even if she's going to pass away, I can't do this to her. I can't, because it's like, why would I want her last few months of life to be miserable?
I didn't know what to do. I just knew that I didn't want to put her through all that intense high-dose chemo and miss out on what might be the last bit of time that we have with her, because I had talked to my uncle. He's in his 60s now, but when in 1969, my cousin, his daughter, was like 3, and she got cancer of some kind. And he told me about what that was like in that time, and they just kept giving her more chemo and more chemo and more chemo, and then finally we had this long, several-hour conversation one day, and he told me, I asked him, because I had prepared myself, was trying to prepare myself, I said, what is it like when a doctor tells you that's it. I can't do any more. And my uncle Ray told me that for the last few weeks of my cousin's life, they celebrated Christmas once a week. And they had a Christmas and a birthday once a week until that was it. And I was putting myself in his shoes, and I was thinking, I was just thinking that I couldn't watch my daughter wither away, and that if I wanted to be, at least I wanted whatever time I had to be happy as could be anyway, and not, I don't know, not just watch her wither away from chemo that's not doing any good anymore.
We had actually asked the endocrinologist at MD Anderson about Dr. Burzynski, and he told us he was a quack and that there was no evidence that worked. But at that point it was like, well, yours doesn't really work either.
The other thing that I did on the FDA's website, you can look up the date at which any drug was granted FDA approval, and I realized that the oldest drug they wanted to give her had come out in the early 70s. The newest drug that they wanted to give Kelsey came out around 1988. And I realized this isn't the cutting edge of technology. This is, they're giving us the same old stuff. I just thought, well, this is ridiculous. It felt to me like they were grasping at straws. I was doing all that research, and Sarah and Susan found the Burzynski clinic. Sarah said, well, I want to take her there. I looked at it like, well, if she's got approximately 9 months to live, then, we come over here and we don't have all the side effects. Well, in 9 months' time, which am I going to be better off doing?
Right.
If the ending result is the same.
Upon the removal of Kelsey's left kidney and left adrenal gland, her diagnosis was confirmed at the University of Texas Medical Branch and again at MD Anderson Cancer Center. Where, a month later, MD Anderson also confirmed that Kelsey's cancer had spread to her lungs. After desperately researching Kelsey's situation, her family decided to decline all chemotherapy treatments offered by MD Anderson and instead enroll Kelsey into one of Dr. Burzynski's clinical trials. By this time, Kelsey's cancer had also spread into her liver. After starting her anti-neoplaston treatment, the tumor in Kelsey's liver was gone by August of 2007. CT scans of her chest revealed 6 tumors in her lungs at the start of treatment. One by one, the tumors in Kelsey's lungs began to go away. Leaving one small spot 4 years later, which was deemed to be inactive and most likely scar tissue. Today, Kelsey Hill is considered to have had a complete response to her anti-neoplaston treatment. Since Dr. Burzynski began treating cancer patients with anti-neoplastons, he has successfully treated virtually every type of cancer, relieving thousands of families from across the world of this dread disease. Yet, unlike other clinical trials which are supported by billion-dollar pharmaceutical companies and are often assisted by large tax-funded research grants from the National Cancer Institute, the United States government currently prohibits any taxpayer money to be granted to Dr. Burzynski's FDA-approved clinical trials.
A single phase 3 trial will cost about $25 million. So how many can you run? Okay, you may run few at best. Nobody's giving you money for that. We have to make money for that. Okay, and it's $25 million. Okay, Some other pharmaceutical companies will come with the idea, they go to a National Cancer Institute and they will receive handsome grant, $15 million, whatever, okay? And they do clinical trials. Nobody is giving me any money, okay? And I am working like in the war.